So when it comes to bodybuilding, you need to know how much money you're making to live.
86 years old is my oldest client.
Once you reach in the $50,000 range,
You got to find experts in those categories.
you have to run everything.
I can't ask for anything more than that.
You are now in a better position to make decisions. What's good, fam? Welcome to Financial Fitness, a podcast where fitness and accounting collide. I'm your host, Sam Razban-Nia, the fitness accountant. Today, our guest is Nate Salas, personal trainer and bodybuilder. What's going on, Nate?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So tell me about yourself. You know, what got you into fitness and how did you get your start into the health industry?
So I'm a personal trainer, classic physique competitor, the NPC. And originally I got into fitness right out of high school. I realized what I didn't want to do. I got into some construction for a few months and I realized that's not what I wanted to do. And my brother was a trainer at the time already. He was training at a gym, a personal training only gym. And I kind of saw what he was doing, and we actually both hired a coach from the same gym, and he was a bodybuilding coach. So that's pretty much how we got started.
Is he still competing? Is he a competitor right now, or do you still keep in contact with him?
I texted him maybe a year ago, but he's like out of the state. He's not really doing personal training or like fitness anymore. But we started with him, and I saw like how he was training us. I really liked it. I wanted to do that for myself. I was like, I'm trying to be in a gym all day, air conditioned, motivated. It's just a dope atmosphere to be in all day compared to some other jobs I had.
So did you have family members in the past that were into health and fitness that kind of also gave you that push, or was it really, the jobs that you were having really didn't cut it for you anymore? Like,
it was pretty much just the jobs I was currently having. I wasn't really into them, and I was always into fitness. I used to be a wrestler in high school and stuff, so that got me into fitness. I did sports my whole life, but once I saw my brother, training, and I got a piece of it, I got to feel it and work with the trainer. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I really like this stuff.
So your brother is also a bodybuilder, or is he just a fitness trainer, or what does he do?
So yeah, my brother, he's a fitness trainer and a bodybuilder, but he is also getting into massage therapy too.
Oh, nice.
Now.
Okay.
So he's offering both the training and the massage therapy too.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Tell the guests a little more about, like, where do you train right now? What is the name of your company, and what is your style of training?
Yeah, so currently I'm training at Fitness-Mania Gym in Riverside. My personal training brand is High Power Training. My style of training is it's hypertrophy training.
Okay.
Bodybuilding training. You train for muscle. I used to be into like kind of powerlifting, where you're doing less reps, more weight. But now I've worked with some good bodybuilding coaches who taught me how to, really tear that muscle apart and, do a bunch of reps, do some pauses, tempos, slow reps, all that stuff. So that's
tempo. That's something I learned, like 3-1-1-1 and all that good stuff. Okay, so Nate, tell me more about high power training and your philosophy and, how you approach different types of clientele.
So my philosophy in training is no matter the age of the client or capabilities of the client, the goal is to turn the client into the best version of themselves. And, it varies between person to person, really. Some people are capable of competing and doing competitions and going out there on stage. And some of my older clients, they're 80 years old. 86 years old is my oldest client.
86.
And,
wow.
Sometimes just making it in the door and doing one exercise is her 100%. And I can't ask for anything more than that.
How did you meet this client? Through referral, or like, is it a family member?
So actually, I was training at a gym, and I was training at a gym that had a lot of seniors,
Okay.
And that's where I really first started training people. And I still have that clientele lingering around still for
Okay.
4 years, 5 years ago.
That really teaches you patience, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of movements have you been able to, like, when you're dealing with a more senior client, what is the way that you approach that versus, younger clients like me? Like, what kind of mentality do you have to shift in them? Also because experience through life kind of changes that. Like, what do you,
Right, right.
yeah.
So pretty much it's the same approach to every client. I just break it down to the basics. I see what they're capable of. I put them through some really simple exercises, see where they're at, and then we just go from there. And yeah, pretty much it's always the same. Just got to see where they're at, really, where they're starting. All right, so Sam, I have some questions for you.
Okay.
As I'm, growing in my fitness career, I hear a lot of different things of which, kind of business you should have. And yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think is the best type of business to have as a personal trainer, like a C corp, an S corp, or having an LLC? I know there's like benefits to having each one.
Mhm.
Which one would you say the best is?
I gotta say, first, I'm pretty impressed because a lot of people don't even know what a C corp is, for example. So that's a good question. Um, so the tax law and the legal aspects are a little different. And I always like to, point this out at the top. So right now, you're an independent personal trainer. You're contracted with the gym in Riverside, I assume, right? You're not an employee, right?
Right. So I
Okay.
pay rent.
You
I
pay rent.
rent the place out.
So right now, in the eyes of tax law, you're a sole proprietor. You're an independent contractor, sole proprietor, a gig worker, and what's called a Schedule C business. So that really just means that you're someone who hasn't gone and formally set up an entity with the state to do a business. The IRS has created this sole proprietor arena in order for taxpayers to have the ease of having a business without formally creating one as like a first step to just help the general populace. So you're a sole proprietor. So, that's the first step. So the other entities are LLC and C corp. And then I'll get to S corp a little bit later. Uh, so once you get to a certain profit level, we generally in the industry like to say $50,000. That means your gross income minus your expenses get your profit, right? So that profit, once you reach in the $50,000 range, uh, it's wise to create an entity because you have more benefits that way, both legally and tax wise, which I'll get into. But that's like the magic number to keep in your head. So $50,000. So limited liability company.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
And if I'm going too fast, just let
Yeah,
me know.
yeah. No, no, no. You're good.
So limited liability company. So you go to the state of California and you register and open an LLC. So now you have an entity that's separate from you personally.
I see.
That means you're running a full-fledged business. Not that you're not right now with your Schedule C, but now you have more, I would say, professionalism and um, uh, more safety. So with an LLC, you get a major plus that you can't get with a sole proprietor, and that is liability protection. But right now at your gym, I'm assuming you're paying for liability insurance, right?
Yes.
So this is kind of where it's a little funny, but as a sole proprietor, you do have liability protection, what you're doing right now. But when you create an LLC, you actually the entity now gives you that, but also your personal assets are separate from that LLC. So let's say you get into a lawsuit or something happens, uh, your assets personally cannot be touched.
Nice.
Only what the business does. And something that I want the viewers to know is it's not like it's unlimited liability. So the law says in terms of fraud or some kind of gross negligence on your part, the courts can still actually do what's called pierce the LLC and come through and take your personal stuff. But that's if you're dealing with fraud and stuff like that. So yeah, so now that you have your LLC, you're separate, which means you now have to keep your bookkeeping records, which we'll talk about later in the podcast. And now tax-wise is really interesting. When you have an LLC, your tax ramifications are exactly the same as if you were a sole proprietor, which is really funny, but that's just the way it works. Because you're a single owner, everything that you did, like you're doing right now, it's just going to translate, but on a separate, in an entity form instead of like you personally.
Right.
So you file what's called a Schedule C, and that Schedule C is going to say like Nate Salas, LLC, and then it'll have all your activity there, but it's exactly as if you didn't put LLC there. It would be just like Nate Salas. So the advantage really is legal on that aspect. But now we get to the other entity, which is a C Corp. So a C Corp is a very old school, old-timey entity type. So it was really one of the first entities that were ever created by state law, and public companies usually have that. So like Apple, Google, Meta, all that stuff, they're under a C corporation. A C corporation is just an entity that has shareholders that buy into it and create the business that way, right? But you're a one-person operation for the time being, at least.
Right.
And you don't need that kind of structure. Plus, it actually has 2 tax layers on top of it. One being a corporate tax level that you have to file a separate return for. And when it gives you funds, when it gives you your investment back in the form of dividends, you have to pay taxes on it again. So it's a double taxed entity, which is not tax favorable.
Right.
So that kind of comes to the last entity. I know this is a mouthful, but you can ask me questions as we go. Is what is an S corp? So an S corp, that is probably the most popular type of entity type. It's actually not something you go and create with the state of California or a state government. You take an existing LLC or C Corp and you tell the IRS, I want to be taxed as an S Corp. So it's actually not a separate type of entity. It's just a tax classification.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's called an S Corp because it comes from Chapter S, Subchapter S of the law.
Okay.
And, I think this is a little bit over the scope of what we want to talk about, but it has its tax advantages because right now you're taxed on 100% of your income, both income tax wise and Social Security and Medicare wise. But when you have an S Corp, you are able to avoid some of that Social Security and Medicare as opposed to just being an LLC that's regular. So I know that was a lot, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, that makes tons of sense. Yeah, I've heard LLC, it really can save you from getting sued personally. You get sued from your business or something, then it's just the business and not you. They can't take your assets and stuff.
Right.
That seems like it would be a nice way to go.
And, a lot of people have extra insurance, right? So like you have liability insurance right now. Some people have that on top of the LLC, which is smart because, sometimes maybe the court of law won't be in your favor for some odd reason, but I don't see you getting into any fraud. So
hopefully not. Actually, I just started going back to school. One of my clients actually is paying for me to go. So
that's really nice.
Yeah.
To get what kind of cert?
Just take all the business classes. Yeah. I'm starting with entrepreneurship, intro to entrepreneurship. And it's kind of like a review of what I've been doing for the past few years,
Oh, beautiful.
but just learning the real terms and stuff. So it's
Okay.
really cool.
So now that you've had your own business, you can understand what the class is actually saying,
Exactly.
which is beautiful. When you have real world experience,
Yeah.
you know, just growing up too, like we didn't really understand that much of what we were taught.
Right.
But when you have that real life experience,
Yeah.
it makes so much more sense. So what are you learning right now in entrepreneurship, or you haven't started yet?
So
Or
we just started. It's just going over the basics, like the vision statement, the mission statement, and all that stuff. So I'm kind of going back and like rewriting my mission and vision just to, have something on paper. I had it written down before, but now that I'm like really digesting it,
Mhm.
I want to do it the right way,
Okay.
And I know you can go back and change it as many times as you want as
Exactly.
things change and you learn more. So
Okay.
that's basically what I'm gonna keep that going.
Do you know if they have any accounting
Yes.
in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if they have it in that class, but I definitely want to take an accounting class
Okay.
to learn that.
It's a whole other world,
Yeah,
brother.
I know.
Let me tell you. You know, let's get into more of high power training and, you know, how you started and some challenges that you faced and are maybe still facing that you can maybe tell the viewers and anyone who's trying to be an entrepreneur like you.
Okay, cool. So, I first started just like every other trainer, go online and find a certification to get. So I got the NCCPT, and as soon as I got my certification, I went on Indeed and I was like, what kind of training jobs can I get? So just like everybody else, I started at LA Fitness and I worked there for a few months. I got to learn how to sell training to people. I got to learn the business, what kind of people I'm working with. I was like, all right, like I really liked LA Fitness. I learned a lot there, but
Is there a reason why most people start with LA Fitness? Like, I feel like the last three guests I had all did LA Fitness and not like 24-hour fitness for some reason.
I think it's just the return rate, man. I
I
think
see.
that they just go through people like crazy.
I see. I see. It's like a revolving door.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I started there, built the clientele up, and then I got it hired at this gym called Canyon Crest Athletic Club, and that's where I started meeting all these seniors, and I worked the front desk there, and I had my cert, so on the side I did training, and I worked both positions until I built the training up full time.
Hmm.
And actually that gym closed after COVID. They closed, so I brought all my other clients into Fitness Mania, and that's where I started working out and really getting into personal training full time.
Is Fitness Mania a public gym or is it private trainers only? How does-
It's a public gym.
Okay.
Yeah, they have memberships and
Okay.
yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out Fitness Mania.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of challenges I faced. At first, when I first started at 18, everybody was saying, "Oh, you're too young to be a trainer," and all this stuff. And people don't want to hire somebody that's younger than them. So that was one of the challenges I faced. But I kept going. I just kept trying, and I didn't give up. And people are always going to tell you you're too young, or you don't know enough. But you just got to keep going, and the confidence lies in the knowledge that you learn through the trainers I hired. If I didn't hire trainers, I didn't have multiple coaches, I would have never known, how to really train people and get people results.
Has your brother played a part in, you know, being a coach to you too in that sense?
Oh
Does he-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he really set the tone for me. I always had him to look up to. So I was in high school when he was a trainer, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, man.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Is he at Fitness Mania right now?
Yes, he's
Yeah.
at Fitness Mania. He's
Oh, we got
doing,
the Salas brothers at Fitness Mania right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All
he's
right.
doing massage therapy there too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. How about like financial challenges in the sense of, you know, have you learned any tax accounting and finance things that you didn't know that came up because all of a sudden now you're a business and have to do taxes? Like, did you find
Yes.
out the hard way that maybe you can?
So as you're working for a job, as you have a job, you get a W-2, and they take your taxes out for you. as you go independent, full-time trainer, nobody's taking taxes out for you, so you have to take it out yourself. And yes, I did have to learn the hard way, but yes, you have to take your money out per month, like you would, like the W-2 would do it for you. But this time you gotta do it yourself.
The first guest who understands that realm of what we call quarterly estimated taxes.
Yes.
So, yeah, you know, as an employee, everything's taken care of for you.
Yep.
But when you have your own business, you have to run everything.
Right.
You are your own accountant, marketer, business manager, everything, right? So you actually have an obligation to pay taxes quarterly. It doesn't have to be every month.
Right.
So the way to do that is, you know, making sure you have an income statement or a profit and loss statement, something that we'll get to. But that's probably the most difficult lesson, guys, that a lot of guests, you know, have learned. And I try to tell a lot of individuals in the fitness space, the IRS doesn't care that you don't know. It's your responsibility to learn, right? So the difficult part is the first time that it ever happens, there is penalties and interest that are added when you do your tax return in April of the next year. The way you're supposed to do it is just like the W-2, like you said, right? During the year, you have to make the tax payments during that year that you're making the income. That's why it's called an estimate. I see. So instead of them withholding, you know, every 3 months, you have to calculate with an accountant, or, you know, I highly suggest hiring one to understand how much do I have to pay this quarter or the next quarter. Because if you wait and do everything until April 15th of the next year, you're completely late. Yeah. Especially if you have like a full-fledged LLC or a corporation, because now your requirements are much more involved. So you have to be on top of it. So Nate, let's, you know, talk about coaches that you have or have had in the past. And, you know, do you think that's necessary both from a personal standpoint, a fitness standpoint, a business standpoint? You know, what role does a coach play in general and in your life?
Yeah, so it's super, super important, I think, to have a coach. The role they play is just to keep you accountable. You know, it takes all the guesswork out of it. When you're on prep, you know, you're short on carbs, your mind starts going, you know, you think you look better than you do, or maybe you think you look worse than you do. But the coach just keeps the train on the tracks, really. You know, it's super important, I think, if you're going to compete, to have a coach. My first coach was Derek Luther. He was a really good coach. I learned a lot from him. And I hired a new coach 2 years later, Ron Gordon.
Shout out to Ron.
Shout out to Ron. I learned a ton from him. You know, he's very intense. I learned a lot about the training style, hypertrophy, you know.
Is he a bodybuilder himself?
He's a pro, yeah. He's a pro bodybuilder, open bodybuilder.
Oh, open. Okay.
Yes. And just recently, 2 years ago, I got with Ryan Benson from Zero Gravity. And I've learned a lot from him too. You know,
one of the biggest names in the industry right now.
Yeah. You know, his thing is carb cycling, and I love it. You know, I think it's really good to have I think that the carb cycle, it just keeps your body from going too flat in prep. I think people starve too long and their glycogen depletes. Having a carb cycle, it keeps you full. And yeah, it felt the biggest with Ryan for sure.
Is carb cycling something that you would recommend to a lifestyle client?
It depends. You know, I think some people get lost with the carb cycle. They can't do the low carb day, and then they can't go from a high carb day to a low carb day. It's really hard
mentally.
Yeah, because you go from eating. My highest carb amount was 1,000 grams of carbs. I went from 1,000 grams of carbs to eating maybe like 400 or 200 the next day, And that's a big difference. You know, you wake up, you go to bed with your stomach just out to here, and you wake up in the morning and you're sucked in.
Did you
You're
say
hungry.
1,000 grams of carbs?
Yeah.
That's 4,000 calories
Yeah.
in one day?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Dang. Obviously for prep.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Nate, so something that came to the top of my mind is, what is the way that you work with balancing your personal life and your bodybuilding life, and the relationships that you have personally, are they affected by that, the bodybuilding life that you love to live? Like, can you tell us, like, how do you balance that, and tell viewers of ways to maybe make it easier?
Definitely. So you always got to remember prep is it's a luxury. You know, you get hungry, you start starving, and then you realize that there's people in other countries that don't have the option to do that. So it's a decision that you make. So you have to, be accountable for what comes with it. And it's not the other people in your life's fault that you're hungry. So it really just comes down to, how bad you want it.
Mm.
It's like, are you willing to, go on a date with your girlfriend and bring your own meal? If you're on prep, how bad do you want it?
Have you done that?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
And you have to, if you want to balance it, you're going to make it work, or at least you're going to try. But a lot of people, they just think, oh, no, I can't do that. Like, oh, no, I can't go out to that party or I can't go out to see my family because they're going to have all this food around and I'm going to have to say no. But you don't have to. You could just bring your own food, You don't have to starve, or you don't have to not go. You can go because it's not their fault you're on prep.
Right.
It's your personal decision. So you just have to be accountable. And if you really want it bad enough, you'll find a way to make it happen.
I never thought about that starving portion. Obviously, you're intentionally starving yourself.
Right.
That's what the deficit is. But I never thought about the luxury aspect of it. You're actually doing it for a sport. Other people don't have the option, but you're doing it because you have that. That's just really crazy to think about.
And you can give in at any time.
You can.
And I thrive off of that. I know that I can, but I'm not going to do it. You see those cookies, you can smell them, but you can't eat them. At least, if you're strong.
Yeah.
You can't eat them because that's not aligned with your goals.
Yeah.
You have that goal of stepping on stage, being your best, and it's a temporary time. The time's going to pass regardless. There's an end date, and then after the show, you can go have your cookies or cupcakes, whatever you want.
And this is my favorite thing to talk about right now, like taking that mentality and putting it to use as an entrepreneur,
Right.
as a business owner. And this is why I really enjoy this field so much, because if y'all can take that mentality for the sport, imagine how big your business can become if you put that same mindset to it. And this is something I'm learning. If you want it bad enough, you can make it happen. And I always feel like it is easy to give in, and I've given up so many times. But I now know that I have to push as hard as I can to get that end goal. I know it can happen if I just put my mind to it. I've wanted to give in so many times, and I have, but it's knowing that if you just keep going, then it'll happen. Like it's the going of it. Like I just get up and do it.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think that's how bodybuilding and entrepreneurship are so alike.
Yeah.
Like people don't realize how hard it is to build a business. People don't realize how hard it is to, step on stage, not just step on stage, but win a show, like give everything you got. And it's not 100% that you're going to win,
Yeah.
but in your mind, you got to know, like, you got to know, like, you're doing everything it takes. You have to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And in the entrepreneurship world, People aren't willing, in the personal training world, people aren't willing to like last long enough to see profit or to see results.
Yeah.
They give up too easy, you
Yeah.
know.
Too
They go to
soon.
they get their cert and then they just disappear and
Yeah.
they go in to get a job and you know they get paid and they don't have to think for themselves. But you know to hang around and to last and to not give up, you're only going to see good results because the experience that you experience, you know, all the time that you gave to it,
Yeah.
something good is going to happen out of it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think a lot of people give up too soon.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm struggling with in my business, but that's why I just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Just you have to believe in yourself because
Right.
no one else does, right?
Right.
That's what we always hear. And just go for it. The hardest step is the first step.
Oh, yeah.
And it took me a long time to get that first step going.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably what's going to happen if I ever do a show one day. You know, it's just take that first step.
Yeah.
If I want it that badly, I can make it happen.
Right.
And that's what the moral of the story is.
But
Just-
then again, go back to what we talked about earlier. It
Yeah.
does help to have somebody accountable that's
yeah.
been there before.
Exactly.
That's why it's so important to have a coach.
Yeah.
I see these kids, they go out there on stage and they coach themselves.
It's okay maybe the first time.
It's okay. The
But-
first time is fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you go back and you're like, all right, how can I destroy that physique? And you hire a coach.
Because you will be, and this is the same as for a business coach, you will be light years ahead because of the experience that that professional has, teaching you the millions of facets that you've never heard of to get you to that next level.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's an income constraint for some. Some it's a pride thing.
Yeah.
But I think someone who wants to get ahead, I think that's the best choice in all aspects of life. You know, that's why we have a doctor. That's why we have all these people to help us. They're experienced in it. You have to learn to give up control,
Right.
to believe in someone to get you to that next level. Yeah, Nate, what else do you want to know, you know, in terms of business or tax or finance that you've been wondering about?
So I have a question. What would be the best software to look at your finances? And how often should you go over them? How often should you look over it?
So I would say to start out, Microsoft Excel is honestly the best software to use. We use that as accountants every single day. I kind of want to go over some terms. You know, what is accounting and bookkeeping? You know, a lot of people hear those words, but they don't really know what it means. Accounting and bookkeeping is taking your transactions, every transaction that you have in your business, and your sole proprietorship, and categorizing them, turning them into an income item, an expense item, an equity item, a liability item. So we're taking transactions and making financial statements, specifically a profit and loss or an income statement, which shows, again, your gross revenue, which is all the money that you made and brought in, the gross amount. Then you have your expenses, what you spent, and then your bottom line, you know, your net profit. So that's called an income statement. And then we have something called a balance sheet, which is a statement that shows what you own, what you owe, and the net of those. So everything that you own minus everything that you owe is what you have left over. It's your equity in it. So a lot of people call that a statement of net equity, but it's a balance sheet. And you know, the more important one that I would say for someone in your shoes is going to be your profit and loss statement, right? So there are softwares like QuickBooks, if you've heard of
Heard of it,
QuickBooks,
yeah.
right? So that's probably the most user-friendly software that links your bank account to the website, and you go down and categorize all the transactions. So let's say you made someone Zelled you for a session that you just did. So you go in and categorize that as an income item. And then everything you spent, blah, 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 and that creates your financial. I, again, don't recommend it be done personally. I would recommend a professional do it, just like we talked about a coach, because there are differences with like equity and distributions and non-income and expense items that you would have to know accounting for.
Are those the gray areas?
Not the gray area. Well, that's part of it.
Okay.
But it's just a lot of things might be on a balance sheet that shouldn't be categorized as an income item.
I see.
So that just comes with time and experience again. So yeah, Excel, if you maybe don't have too many, but if you're a full-fledged business, I would say QuickBooks. And I actually probably recommend that for you because you've been in the business how long now? A couple years at least with your personal training business?
Yeah, I've been personal training for 5 years now.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I recommend QuickBooks. And then as a business owner, you should be looking at your expenses and your budget monthly.
Okay.
At least. Why? First of all, you need to know how much money you're making to live, right? I've seen a lot of people just use the number that shows on their bank account, their cash value. But if you want to get deeper into it, you should be seeing which expenses are you overpaying in, which categories are you overpaying in. Is your rent too high? Are your car expenses too high based on what you're making? It allows you to budget and properly build a plan financially, but also it allows you to properly estimate any taxes you have due. So when you do your bookkeeping monthly and your finances monthly, you are now in a better position to make decisions. That's the whole point of accounting and finance. What decisions can we make based on our activity, based on our transactions, to do even better? And then tax strategies. So if someone were to come to me in December, or I should say April 15th, and tell me to do all the accounting and bookkeeping and taxes for the year that just passed, they're out of luck, because you can't say that you bought a $10,000 car last year when we're already in the next year. So the whole point of accounting and bookkeeping is real time. Be in the moment, understand what's happening with your finances and business so you can make decisions to be better off. Sam, I have $25K in taxes due right now. Help me out. Well, I can't. You're too late. You should be working with me during the year to make those decisions. And a lot of people struggle with that. That's the most difficult thing to kind of understand. I kind of put it, it's like akin to someone coming to you, Nate, and after 35 years, maybe they're 100 pounds overweight. They're like, fix it right now. It's exactly like that. You have to invest in yourself. You have to make the time for it and prioritize it. So that's what I got to say to that.
Perfect. Perfect.
So when it comes to bodybuilding, tax law is a gray area in the tax law, and it gets a little tricky because, for some it's a hobby, which would not have any effect on your taxes. But to others, like let's say the first call-outs of the Olympia in any division, they're most likely working 24/7 at that, which means it's their profession. So they have the ability to create it as a business, whereas other people don't. So, when it comes to the expenses and the time and effort it takes to compete, can you tell our viewers, like, what should they expect? What are the expenses involved, and how do you think about budgeting that?
So yeah, definitely. There's many expenses when it comes to competing right. You got to get the right posing coach. Not all the time your head coach isn't going to be Not all the time he's not gonna be your posing coach. There's a bunch of different classes, so you got to find experts in those categories. So you got to get a posing coach. You got to get your supplements, your food, the tan, the competition. There's many expenses. The traveling. So you just have to budget right. And if you're a business owner, it does help. It does help to get those write-offs. But yeah, you just have to know there's going to be a lot of expenses that come with it. But just as the training is hard and the diet is hard, it's just a hard sport. But you have to be prepared for that. You got to be ready, and you really got to want it enough to pay all the prices that come with competing.
If you guys aren't keeping track of your P&L or your accounting and your bookkeeping, and you don't know where you are financially, competing can take a big hit from your bank account. These fees grow, on almost exponentially, especially if your coach says, you should maybe compete on the East Coast, or maybe you're a professional and you're competing in like another country, right? These things add up really quickly. Again, just a disclaimer, these expenses are only write-offs for certain people. It has to be, we've talked about in other podcasts, it has to be related to an actual ongoing business. A lot of people have asked me who are nationally qualified or even IFBB pros, can I deduct this? And the answer is actually likely no. You have to be a professional in the field in the tax law's eyes. An IFBB pro is a pro, but not when it comes to the law. So, just be careful of that, guys. Something I always warn of. But yeah, I think we should get into fun stuff to end this thing. So, who are some of the Olympians that you really like and look up to?
So, the Olympians I look up to, obviously, CBum.
Oh, okay.
He's number one right now.
Do you think he's gonna win again in a couple months?
I think he'll win. Yeah, of course. I think he'll win again, but I think it might be his last one.
They said that last year,
speculation.
Bro.
Yeah, they said that last year. But I don't know, man. I don't know how long he's gonna be the Mr. Classic physique. But I look up to Breon. I like his physique. I think his physique's a little more attainable with my body style.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I love his posing. Yeah, Breon's got sick flow.
Do you know who Matt Grego is?
Yes.
Yeah, he's my top right now.
Yeah, that guy is young, and he's like right there.
How old is he, do you know?
I think he's like 28 or something.
No way.
Or maybe just under 30. I don't know. He's young.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
he's killing it.
He's probably my top. Hopefully he makes it in the top 15.
Yeah.
I don't know,
yeah,
but
it's tough.
A lot of people have Wesley this year as like the go-getter.
Yeah, he's got a sick physique too.
Yeah.
I like his physique. He's getting close to CBum.
If Ramon was a better poser, if I'm being honest, I think he would make it farther. I've talked about in my first podcast, he is my number one, but I do think his posing needs work.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens this year,
Yeah.
but I think probably CBum's gonna get it.
Yeah, I think CBum's got it, but yeah, Ramon's got a sick physique too.
Yeah.
He's killing it.
Yeah.
His posing could use a little work, but I can't say anything because I'm not there yet. So yeah.
One day.
Yeah, one day.
Guys, it was a pleasure. This ends Financial Fitness. Nate, it was great having you, brother.
Thank you for having me,
Thanks
man.
for coming on. Peace, guys.